Here's what's coming up in episode 221, Psychic Leo Brown.
There are moments where you will get it wrong. There are moments where you cannot read for everybody that crosses your doorstep. You just can't. And it's not just me. There's Jerome Braggs, there's Savann Champelle, there's Sandra Marie, there's Elizabeth Ruth. There's so many readers of color that you don't get to see. Life is too short to be boring. Be bold. You know what I mean? Be courageous. Be brutal if you have to, especially with yourself. The world is bad enough. Why should you don't see the sun nor the moon. They never stop doing what they have to do. The moon always controls the tides. The sun always shines, even on cloudy days. So why should you stop doing what you have to and what you need to do and what you want to do? This is your life. Live it well.
Welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance. Today, I am talking with psychic medium, life coach, motivational speaker, and author, Psychic Leo Brown. Those 5 words sum up the man known as Leo Brown perfectly. He truly wants to help you empower your life, showing you that life and everything in it is fabulous. Despite being diagnosed with diplegia cerebral palsy as an infant, told by doctors that he would never see the age of 30, he not only persevered, he overcame. His mission is to embrace this thing called life while empowering the lives of others better than ever. With his down-home charm, intuitive psychic medium ability, and blunt honesty, Leo not only wants you to see the beauty that is within yourself, he wants you to see that you've always had the power to change the world as well as your own. His goal is to heal the world one person at a time, and you can find Psychic Leo Brown at psychicleo.com. And I also wanted to mention Psychic Leo also has a book called Honey, I'm Fabulous, and So Are You, a psychic's journey of love, life, and empowerment. And so that's cool. And I'm here to tell you, he's been very patient because we have had some techie issues tonight, but he has assured me that it's probably just one of the planets being in Gatorade, is what he said. So that is going to tell you a little bit about the energy that we are rolling with today. So Leo Brown, thank you for joining me here in the Big Seance Parlor.
Thank you for having me.
I saw you on Facebook, some kind of promoted Facebook post or something, but I was like, oh, I have got to follow where this goes and see what's up with this. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It probably was one of my Temptation Thursdays.
You have a lot of themed posts, like for every day of the week.
Well, not every day, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I don't do anything. But Monday through Thursday, I post like Monday is Man Crush Monday. Tuesday is a psychic tip. And then Wednesday is Wednesday Wisdom. So that can be like a quote or something that I've learned on this journey called life that I'm still learning.
Well, but you also, one thing that I see a lot on YouTube, because I mean, you have got content that you can follow for days on YouTube,
Thank you.
By the way, but you do psychic perspectives
videos
where you read different personalities and celebrities. And I think those are interesting. Talk a little about those.
Well, it's funny. It actually started out, it was actually, and I have to give credit to my former roommate and one of my community brothers, one of my coven mates at the time, Jason Martin, who was like, you should do something like that. And I was like, well, what should I call it? And he was like, call it star readings. So initially, that's what it was. It was star readings. And in the beginning, I wrote down everything. I would blog about it and write it down. And then it caught a few celebrity attention, like they saw it or they would retweet it. Or I was like, oh my God, people actually listen to what I say. And then I said, well, no, I'm going to do a perspective of that person. So then I said, well, I'm going to call it psychic perspective. And that's how it started. And I've done my most recent one, I did Megan Thee Stallion. And then I've done Jenna Jameson, I've done T.S. Madison. And it was funny because Jenna Jameson and T.S. Madison both saw it. And they were like, oh my God, you were so on point. I'm like, I was. Because I don't know, and it's a way for me to kind of to hobnob in a sense without hobnobbing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And also I'll be honest, I'm a double Leo. So being known and having exposure is kind of important to me. I'm a Leo North Node. So for your astrology nerds that are listening to this, you know what that means. We want to be in front of the camera, whether we want to be or not. So that's where a lot of it comes from. And also I enjoy doing it.
I really thought it was a cool idea because I have I know so many developing psychic mediums that are listeners of mine. And to me, this would be a really good way, especially if you're starting out, to just get practice, to practice your skills if you're reading celebrities. It's not like they're sitting there with you, but you have had a few people reach out to you after you've read them.
I have, but I never thought about that until you said it. I mean, that actually is true because it's great practice. And it was funny because I had one celebrity, comedian Flame Monroe. I did a reading for her, and she was on Instagram, and she saw me on her Instagram live, and she was like, I hate to break it to you, but what you said to me didn't stick. It was not true. And I was like, oh God, it's over. It's done. I might as well just retire. I got a little down, but then I said, but you know what? That's good because you never stop learning.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it actually inspired another video, which is there are moments where you will get it wrong. There are moments where you cannot read for everybody that crosses your doorstep. You just can't. So though for me at first, it was kind of a bruise to my ego. I'm not gonna lie, I do have an ego, okay? But at the same time, it was good because I was like, you know what? This is good. Because now I have to listen to my own intuition, and I have to be more selective of whom I choose to read for and why. You know what I mean? Because now I often tell myself, I'm like, well, who would I want to sit down and have a conversation with? Like if I had the privilege to meet any celebrity, who would I want to talk to? And that's what makes me want to do it because I'm like, I don't really want, because people are like, why don't you read for like BTS or Blackpink? I'm like, first of all, I don't know who they are. Secondly, no, they don't. And it's nothing because people are like, wait.
They've got to resonate with you.
Yeah. Like they don't resonate to me. So I'm like, no, I don't want to, no. But I'm like, but if you give me somebody like Lonnie Anderson, or you give me a Dolly Parton, or you give me Morgan Fairchild, right? I would love to sit down and talk with them. I'd love to have dinner with them, all three of them together, and be like, all right, ladies, how have y'all survived in this business? Tell me. So for me, that's what it's about. Who do I resonate with? Who can I see myself giving a reading to? And if I can't see it, I won't do it.
Well, I love that you're so down to earth.
Thank you.
There's so many people in this space, I guess we'll call it, that are, the love and the light, and I love me some love and light people, but you sometimes can tell that they're hiding some of the real part.
Oh, yeah.
And so I love the getting real here.
Listen, let me tell you something, okay? That, for me, it really is about integrity. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be well known. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have exposure. There's like things like this or television. or there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But when people cross your path, like when I do events, I try to talk to people just like I would want someone to talk to me. And I've been with other well-known people, and they were just very, and I'm like, first of all, I don't know why you turn your nose up. You put your pants on one leg at a time, just like me. Don't you dare act as if you are better than or greater than. You're not. Because all this that you have right now could go away tomorrow. Okay? And speaking of somebody who's had some rough tumbles, who's had some rough times, just recently, I'm grateful for everything I get. You know what I mean? Even if it's not in the way I wanted it, I still got it. You see? So for me, it's like, no, I'm never going to toot my nose up at you. Now, that doesn't mean I won't carry myself with grace or class or style or proper manners and etiquette. But I will never act as if I'm better than. And a lot of people in our industry, let's just be honest, a lot of them do act like that. Well, I have written a book. Good for you, baby. You want a cookie? I can bake you a few. You want some cookies? Good for you. Well, I've written a book and I've traveled the world. Good for you, honey. I can do the same thing. It just takes the right people. Listen, it's not hard to write a book out here. It's not hard to travel the world out here if you got frequent flyer miles or if you know people that have budgets. It's not hard to get a television show if you know the right producers. It's not difficult to attain those things that you want to attain. You can do it. But in that process, don't act as if you're greater than or grander than. You're not. You're not. Yeah. Oh, God, I could tell you stories about people that I met that I'm like, okay, but you live 20 minutes outside the city. But you, okay. All right. I see how you want to do in the summer, bitch. Okay. No, man. And I'm never going to be that way. And I don't care if I live on a grand, in a grand mansion on a hill. I don't ever want to forget who I am, because I think that's a big issue. A lot of us, we get a little notoriety, we get a little fame, we get a little adulation. We forget who we are. We forget that we used to drink out of mason jars, and mayonnaise glasses and make mayonnaise sandwiches when we didn't have any to eat, And I'm originally from the Deep South. I'm from Alabama. So I remember all that. I don't forget that. And I still do those things. That has not changed me, But at the same time, I can also go into a restaurant and say, I want, Ostrover caviar and your finest champagne. But I also am like, listen, can I have a pork chop? Pork chop would be lovely. I'm just never going to forget my beginnings. And just like St. Louis, I lived in St. Louis for 18 years. I never will ever be like, that was my foundation. St. Louis was my foundation. And I owe St. Louis a tremendous debt, along with the people that I met in St. Louis that said, you can do this. Because originally I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to be Beyonce. I wanted to make records. I still do. Like, that's one of my hidden talents. I love to sing. And I sing all the time, to the point to where my neighbors are like, can you shut up? But I went to school for music. I don't know how to read a note, but neither did Irving Berlin or Gershwin or Dolly Parton. But it didn't stop them from writing great songs. But yeah, I wanted to do that. And my best friend at the time, roommate, coven mate, soulmate, said to me, I think you have a greater calling than that. You have a beautiful voice, but I think there's something big you're supposed to do. And he was the one that introduced me, because his family, they're pagan, and his mother's side, I think, traditionalists. And they were like, I think you have something greater to do. And they were the ones that said, here, do this. I was the one that took it and made it into a business, because I come from entrepreneurs. My father was a record producer. My mother was a hairstylist. So I come from people that know business. So I was the one that said, ooh, I'm going to take this and make this. And I want to be a mogul. I want to be like Oprah Winfrey. I want my own production company. I want my own LLC. And that's how it all happened. And the rest, as they say, is history. I know you have some questions. You're probably, well, that's out. I can't use that.
No.
Probably answer them all.
No, we just roll with where this goes. You were talking about mayonnaise sandwiches.
With tomatoes, yeah.
My dad every now and then will bust out some ketchup and crackers because it just takes him back to a time when sometimes that's all they had was ketchup and crackers.
Potted meat and crackers, sardines. I love sardines. If anybody wants to send me some sardines, please do. Please ship them to the big Seance office. And some hot sauce. What's another one? Vienna sausages. I grew up on those kind of things. I'm a country girl.
Spam?
Yeah, spam. Oh, yeah. I love spam casserole and, toasted spam and grilled cheese. But I'm a country girl deep down. I'm a really simple person. I'm a person that has champagne taste, but I know I have Kool-Aid money.
And you're working for it.
Yes. I get on that pole every night, just like everybody else. I think there's nothing wrong with being confident, but it's like my best friend at the time told me. He was absolutely right. He told me, whatever you do in life, be confident, but never cocky. And he was absolutely right. And that's a big thing for me. That's one thing I always try to remind myself. Because I've done television. I've done local TV. I actually did local TV in St. Louis, actually. I did, was it KSDK?
Mm-hmm.
And I did their Halloween shows for 2 years. And I was like, okay, that's cute. But I'm like, but at the end of the day, I still had to go home and wash dishes.
Right.
I wasn't getting a limousine. I mean, I could have, but then I would have been in debt. But that's what I'm saying. It changed things in the sense that it got me more bookings, but it did change me to where I was like, oh, well, I'm all of that. No. Because at the end of the day, I still had to wash dishes. I still had to do laundry. I still had people that I lived with that I had to love and respect. And don't get me wrong, I think we all get a little overconfident or cocky sometimes. I think with, it's like, oh, I'm Miss Thing. I read for Jenna Jameson, or I read for, Flame Monroe. And even though they didn't like it, I still did it. You know what I mean? I think there's nothing wrong with that and enjoying it. But at the same time, it's like, don't ever act as if you cannot approach the person on the bus the same way you would approach someone that drives a limousine.
Mm-hmm. Of all the psychic senses,
mm-hmm.
which ones do you work with the most?
I am what they would call clairvoyant. Well, actually, the ones I work with most would be clairvoyance and clairaudience, I think. Because even though I do say that I am empathic, but I think everybody, I'm an empath. No, baby, you got anxiety. That's not empathy. But okay.
Oh, I love it.
I get so sick of that. People, I'm an empath. No, you're not. No, that's not empathy. Not saying that the empaths don't exist. Because I don't want people to, but empath, I didn't say that. I said that everybody uses that word too loosely. It's just like the word diva. Oh, she's a diva. She came out 2 years ago. She's not a diva. Oh, that's an icon. Okay. 2 years. But all right, whatever. So my two greatest strengths, I would say psychically, are my clairaudience and clairvoyance. And for me, in clairvoyance, I see it like a movie. I don't see it like, like waking visions and stuff. I thank God I don't. And then by clairaudience, I'll hear a name, or I'll hear music, or I'll hear like a word or a sound. And actually, as I've gotten older, it shifts too. It changes. But I think that's because as you change, your gifts change. So, and I do believe that they grow and change just like you do. But yeah, those are my two greatest strengths. I would say my weaknesses are, because you had a paranormalist on your show last time that I listened to. I was like, I am so proud of him, but I am not that. I am a scaredy cat.
Oh, you mean in like paranormal situations?
Yes. Oh my God. I went on one paranormal investigation in Chester, Virginia. Shout out to Chester, Virginia. And it was with this paranormal team that I knew. And they invited me along. And when I tell you, I literally ran like the lion from the Cowardly Lion from the Wizard of Oz. when the wizard was like, okay, give me the broomstick. Go get the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West, and I'll grant you your request. And he tells him to go. And he's like, and he yells, I'll go. And I'm the lion, like literally running out of the thing.
Jump out the window.
Because I'm like, oh, yes. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, this is not my life. I'm like, this is not. Listen, I see something move funny, and I'm running. I'm like, what is that? What are we doing? Who is that? Oh, no, we're not conjuring that. And I'm very sensitive, too. So as a medium, I'm like a lightning rod to the spiritual world. I'm like, no, that's not for you.
So for you, it has to be the right situation for you to open yourself up to that.
It does. Yeah. I can't do it on a whim. I remember watching the Long Island Medium. And I actually didn't discover my mediumship skills until I was in my late 20s. So I watched the Long Island Medium. And I remember this was like in the very beginning, she was like the hot new thing. And I remember her going into the grocery store. And she's in the store and she's shopping. And then she goes to this woman, just random. Did somebody in your world just die? Da, da, da. And I'm like, first of all, you rude woman. Why would you do that? You don't go to random people and ask them that. But then the woman starts crying, and I'm like, well, maybe there's a reason. Okay. And that's why I was like, you know what? I want to do that. And I learned how to tap into it. Because I've had paranormal or spiritual things since I was a kid, but I'm not going to be one of those, well, I'm fourth generation psychic. We're all psychic, sir, ma'am. Stop it. I'm not doing that. I'm fourth generation psychic, and that's cute. That's cute, but stop using that because we all have it. So let's not. Some more than others, but I hate it when people use that. Well, I'm good for you. I'm so happy for you that you're fourth generation psychic medium. That's awesome, but does it pay can it help you get some credit? Can it help you buy a car? Oh, it can't. So, okay, don't use that. Anyway.
So how does your mediumship work? It's obviously then more controlled and not ever like spooky or scary. Like, are they ever coming to you like at night or? You know what?
I take that back because it's so interesting. I've had 2 encounters happen. So I don't know if you know this, but there was a singer, and I love her to pieces. She's one of my favorites. Her name is Phyllis Hyman, and she was a improvisational jazz R&B singer who tragically she took her own life in 1995. And I've always been a fan of her work, always. And when I first started doing the psychic perspective star readings, what have you, she was the first person to come to me. That was my first ever visitation. And I was like, Phyllis, what you doing here? Girl, bye. And she was like, no, I want you to tell the public what they need to know about me because I'm sick of people, all these tributes, and I'm sick of this. I want to be left alone. And I'm like, yeah, me? Why me? And she's like, and she came to me in a dream and she was like, because I know you'll do me justice. I went, okay, girl. So I literally woke up. She was blaring in my head and I wrote down everything she said. So for me, it was almost like channeling.
Yeah.
And I was okay. That was our first one. Then recently, I'm in my apartment, just, doing the things that I normally do, listening to music, listening to, my Bulgarian pop music and things like that. Yes, I do listen to that, people.
Wow.
I love all types of music. Yeah, I love all types of music. So I'm listening, and all of a sudden my lights are flickering. And I'm like, is it raining? Because it had been raining here for the past couple weeks. So I'm like, is it raining? And I look outside. I'm like, I don't hear any rain. I don't see anything. And I was talking out loud. And I do that a lot because I'm raised like that. So I'm talking out loud. And I'm talking to my ancestors. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give you all, because I have an ancestor altar. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give you your water tomorrow, because it was Wednesday going into Thursday. I was like, I'll give you your water tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Da, 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 da. My lights are flickering down. I'm like, okay, stop it. And I'm telling them to stop. And then stop doing it. And then, I'm talking and just doing my thing. And it started happening again. And I'm like, okay, whoever is doing this, quit doing this. Because you're scaring me. You're creeping me out. And then what popped in my head was, that's your grandma. I was like, okay, grandma, I've been talking about you a lot lately, with certain people and things. All right, I get the message. So I literally got up, refilled their waters and stuff, put it on the altar, and everything stopped. And I was like, that's all y'all had. Just ask. I had to be so demanding. And that was really it.
They weren't high enough on your list. You need to focus on them a little more.
But you know what? I think so. Because I think my ancestors really are my dream team. I think they really do help me. And hopefully I help them. And I try my best to feed them, as they say, as you should. And I try to talk to them and, tell them my hopes and my dreams and fears. And I know not every ancestor sees it for me. I know that oftentimes an ancestor worship a veneration. You have some ancestors that don't like you. And you have some ancestors that love you to pieces. Not everybody is love and light. That's just not it. That's not the way it is. If you had an honorary case in point, I'm gonna bring her up now. My grandmother was very honorary. Okay. Her birthday actually was a couple weeks ago. She was something else, honey. She took no mess. But I often think in my head, okay, well, if you were like that in life, I imagine what you like in death. Unless you choose to grow. And oftentimes, whenever I get readings from other readers, she always pops up. And they're like, she doesn't get what you're doing. She doesn't get it. She does not understand it at all. But she's so proud of you. And I'm like, okay, that works.
Well, that's funny because I was just going to ask you, who do you go to when a psychic medium needs a psychic medium? So how often do you get readings from others?
I don't get readings very often. I'll get readings maybe at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, and then maybe my birthday, things like that. But I don't get them very often. And I have so many friends that are readers. So many. Oh my God. So it's hard for me to really, figure out who to go to. But to be honest with you, Patrick, I like not knowing. I do. I like not knowing what's like the man of my dreams could come through my door right now, and I'd be like, "Who are you? And how'd you get in my house?" I like not knowing because I think when you find out, when you get the insight you need, right, and it clicks, right, you start to look for it. And I don't like to do that, and I used to do that. And trust me, I was definitely one of them girls that I would call the 1-800 numbers. So I want to know, is this man my soulmate? I was one of those. I mean, listen, I've been through it. I was that person. I think I got somebody trying to put a curse on me. Somebody doing juju. I was one of them, But I realized, it's like, okay, really? No, listen, we all have negative energy. Stop that, okay? You're trying to do negative stuff to you, and it's heightened because of your fears. And then the whole soulmate thing, you are your own soulmate. A dog can be a soulmate. Your best friend is your soulmate. Stop it, okay? A soulmate is not always a lover. A soulmate can be your best friend. A soulmate can be an animal. A soulmate can be a stranger on the street, Now, twin flame, that's when we get into some real stuff. And you want one of those, you might not. You might end up being on a therapist's couch. You get into a twin flame connection. Just saying. Because twin flames don't play no games. And it will not be easy. And even in that, those are not love connections either, oftentimes. But because we've gotten so enamored with, the happily ever after and the fairy tale thing, we think, oh, well, that's my twin flame. Honey, your twin flame was married with 2 kids. You sure that's what you want? Okay. All right. Have fun.
Enjoy your therapy.
Yeah, please. Because I won't be the one. No, I'm not here for that. Go ahead.
One of my favorite questions to ask psychic mediums that I have on the show, and it's kind of for selfish purposes because
no, go ahead.
I love to collect this response from all psychic mediums, and that is, from your perspective, what happens when we die, and what's it like when we cross over?
I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know, and I don't want to know. Because that's another question I'm just going to be honest. I can't be an answer. Not that question, but this particular question. When am I going to die? Honey, I'm not the Green Reaper. I don't know. I don't know. If I knew, I would be, listen, if I knew when people were going to pass, baby, my fees would be ridiculously high.
Well, what would you say? What do you want to happen?
I would say, to answer your question, what happens when we die? And what was the other question?
What's it like, when we cross over?
I would say, honestly, the one word that pops in my head to answer the question is renewal. Renewal. You begin completely again. Spiral in, spiral out. And I really do believe that. I'd like to think that that's what happens. And I think over there is just like over here, but nicer. And the air is cleaner, and you meet your loved ones.
Can you think yourself up a mansion and just create a mansion and be like, this is my house?
Well, no, I don't think that. I think just like over here.
Because that's what I hope.
Well, I mean, I would love that. But I think that just like over here, we have hierarchy and protocol.
Yeah.
I think over in the spirit world we do too.
Mm.
Which is why I think that when you go over there, when it's time for you to go home or return, as they say, you know, you may not live in a mansion, you may live in a cottage. You may live in a villa, you know? And I think it's just, for me, I believe that the other side, whether it be heaven, whether it be hell, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you choose to give it, is what you make of it. It's a state of mind as well. So I believe that too. So I think that if you go over there with, say you go over there and there's things that are unfinished, or there's a lot of guilt or grief or sadness or anger even, it's gonna reflect in your experience. And it's just like being here. If you live life with a lot of regret and anger and sadness, and you know, you mad at the world and mad at yourself for your life choices, it's gonna reflect that in the people you meet, in the things you do, in the choices you make. So I think it's a mix of that, in my opinion.
What's your relationship with tarot? When were you introduced to tarot?
Oh, baby. Tarot I collect tarot decks. So that should tell you something. Tarot is actually like when it comes to the occult, tarot is my first love. I love tarot. I love cards. I could give a reading like it ain't nothing. And I was introduced to tarot when I was in high school. And that's the only way, that happens, right? For real, that's normally I swear, high school is the gateway to the occult. I honestly believe that. But high school and the craft, I don't care what anybody says, that movie was a gateway.
I just recently saw that movie for the first time, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, and I thought it was fabulous.
I love that movie, even though it was very Hollywood and very inaccurate in some aspects. But I love that movie. I do. And shout out to Rachel True for Risa Balk, because I wanted to be Nancy Downs. And in some ways, I am Nancy Downs. Just saying. I know I'm crazy. Okay. And I mean, none of us wants to be white trash anymore. So I get that. I am her and she is me. But when I was in high school, and it was when I moved to St. Louis, and it was my soon to be best friend / coven mate. I met him when he was 15. He met me when I was 19 and 20. And we became the best, well, not automatically, because I didn't like him. But we became, as time went on, we became friends. And he was the one that mentored me and introduced me. He actually was the one that bought me my first tarot deck, which was the Tarot of the Cat People. Yeah. And I actually still have that deck to this day. I ended up getting it back many years later, because I ended up losing it, and then I ended up getting it back. But I love tarot. And I read cards every now and again. I don't have to, but I love pulling them out just for reference. Mm-hmm. And there's so much you can do with just one card, you know, which I love. Like, you can read one card and be like, is this? You know, I love that. Something about tarot.
Do you use any other tools in your work, or even just for fun?
Let me think.
Because usually when I ask that question, a lot of times mediums will say, well, I don't really need them.
You know, I hate to say it, but I to echo the other mediums you probably interviewed.
Yeah.
I don't really need them, to be honest with you. But I've always been curious about using a talking board.
Ooh.
Yes. But then I'm like, as psychic sensitive as I am, child, it'll be something going on in this house. And I'm like, no, we're not doing it. If we are, we're going to go to a park.
Well, we do tend to be very Ouija friendly here on this show.
Oh, yeah. I think Ouija boards are beautiful.
I collect quite a few boards, but I've always made the joke that they're basically a coaster for me, because when I use them, nothing happens. But I love them.
Really? Well, that's good for you, because, child, listen, when my psychic abilities first started to take shape, I go through a major depression. And it was over something. It was over a child. It was over something that I look back. I'm like, you were just dumb. But anyway, it was over this dude that I knew I couldn't have, you know. And that's a whole in the show, honey. Gay men trying to go after the unattainable. And you know what the unattainable means, gay men. You know what I'm talking about. Now, went through a major depression. And also I was going through emotional issues with my mother at the time, because my mother and I really didn't get along. My mother and actually that whole became my family. But anyway, so going through that, and during this time, I'm also studying and learning and reading And honey, things started to move. They weren't supposed to move. And lights would flicker on and off. And I was like, what is this? And at the time I was scared of the dark. So the lights would flicker off and it'd be complete dark. And I'm like, oh my God. It bring up a childhood trauma for me. And I'm like, this is not good. And I remember my friend was saying, he was like, I think you're like Carrie. You're like Carrie White. You have that psychic psionic energy. And I was like, oh, that's what this is. And then once I learned how to ground my energy and protect myself, I was like, it stopped. Along with me doing other things like really looking into myself and going into therapy and things like that,
I feel like you have a lot of wisdom for people, or even just young people in general. I like to gear a lot of my messages for young people, but wisdom for people who see themselves as not only fabulous, but also different, whether it be from an LGBTQ perspective or the perspective of people with a disability, or even someone with psychic abilities, because some people, until they grow into that, they feel very, not singled out, but very scared of their abilities, or different, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm wondering if you just have any general wisdom for the peeps.
I do. Number one, it doesn't matter if you're gay. It doesn't matter if you are disabled or able-bodied. It doesn't matter if you're psychic or not. There's nothing wrong with who you are. And my advice and my wisdom will be, number one, embrace within yourself first. And then from there, find people of like mind. Do you always have to agree? No, you don't. But find people of like mind that you can go to and get a support system, even if it's a hotline, something that will make you feel like you're not alone. Because one of the things that I actually really resent about television, especially when it comes to the paranormal, and we've gotten better, but the paranormal and the psychic and unscripted reality is you rarely see people of color. You rarely see people like me. Because I know that for me, when I was growing up, who I admired, believe it or not, was Miss Cleo. Because she was a show woman. She was funny. She was honest. Now, whether or not she was real, we're not debating that today. Okay?
Call me now.
Right. But for me, as a very, very openly gay teen, as someone who was dealing with having psychic ability, and someone who was fascinated by the occult, she represented so much for me. And she was also one of the first psychics of color, along with Walter Mercado.
Wow. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Who opened the door for me. So if it wasn't for Miss Cleo and Walter Mercado, may they both rest in peace, there would be no Leo Brown. And it's not just me. There's Jerome Braggs, there's Savann Champelle, there's Sandra Marie, there's Elizabeth Ruth. There's so many readers of color that you don't get to see. Why don't you have a Hollywood medium show like Tyler Henry, but with a Black person? Or not even a Black person? Why not a Latino? Why not a Cordandana? Why not a person of Indian descent? You need that representation, whether we want to believe it or not. It does matter. So I say to those who may be struggling, okay, you're not by yourself. Trust me, I was once there. I'm still there on a lot of levels. I'm human at the end of the day. I don't profess to be any expert at anything. I'm learning every day. But I would say just kick that door down. The door is ajar, to quote Rita Moreno. The door is ajar, but it's not open. Kick it down. Because we've done what we can. And I applaud people like the Reginald Lewises and I forgot the name of the paranormal team. They're Black men. They're on Investigation Discovery.
The Ghost Brothers.
I would love to meet them. Honey, when I tell you I would flirt my pretty tail off every last one of them. I would love to meet them and tell them thank you, because there are people that want to be in the paranormal, in the spiritual community, that happens to be people of color. There's a lot of us. But thank you for giving us a platform. And for those of us who are young, and those of us who may not even be young, but those of us who are wanting to do that, thank you for showing us. That's no different than when Oprah came on the scene for talk show hosts. It's no different. Oprah did that for many people.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for an Oprah Winfrey, you wouldn't have a Tamron Hall. You know what I'm saying? That's what people don't understand. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Because I would love to see, I'm just going to be honest. I would love to, I vote for myself. I volunteer as tribute. I'd love to do a Tyler Henry type of show. But I'm not going to do that whole, oh, well, I don't know who I'm reading for today. Listen, sir. You're on a show with 90 plus people. You have crew following you. You know who you're interviewing. Don't act brand new with me.
Yeah, I'm always wondering about that.
That's a bunch of BS. That's BS all day long. But it's like, I've noticed that majority of the people who get the quote unquote fame and notoriety, they're usually white, they're from New York, they're from California, they're from Taylor, Massachusetts. It's very hokey. And I'm like, no. But like I said, to go back to my original point, to your original question, what I would say is keep kicking the door down. Keep making it safe for people like us and keep being yourself. We need the Saucy Santanas and the Lil Nas X's of the world. We need those. There's nothing wrong with you. And I don't care if you're gay, straight. I don't care if you're purple or you dye your hair purple. Be yourself. Because had I been myself at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and had I had somebody to say, and I did, I had quite a few, but I didn't listen, I think I would be not further, but I would be a little bit more secure in my own skin. And I've gotten better, but I still am a work in progress like everybody else.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I would like to know if you could, you've done weekly forecasts before.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like, and this might be overwhelming, so you can knock me out if I need to. Just tell me to shut up. But give us a little quick reading with real talk on our world the past 2 to 3 years.
Oh, Lord.
Because whether it's the pandemic, division, racism, culture wars, actual wars, what in the world is this about, and how, I mean, we're getting through it, but how do we continue to get through it?
Well, it's funny because the first thing that pops in my head is community. How we get through it is building community. I think that a lot of things are going to change. I think, especially politically, I think the division that we're seeing is really the old fighting against the new. I pick up that a lot of the old things that we thought worked, like the way it's always been, that's going to change. And we are going to revert a bit, but that's more so just to clean up the mess that we've made. I think racially, we're going to have racism. Don't get me wrong. Racism, I think, will always be here because when you don't know, when you feel what you don't understand, you do that. You lash out. And that's with anything. But I think for the next generation coming, and especially in the next 3 years, I don't think it's going to be as obsolete as it is now. And I feel like we're going to go back to traditions, but kind of like a melting pot. It kind of reminds me of the 60s, where you had the flower power movement, you had the hippies, but then you also had the conservatives who was like, get off my lawn. You're going to have a mix of that, but I think they'll merge together. Because just like you'll have the people that are very polyamorous and very open, you'll have the folks that are like conservative, but then they'll also be like, but I can see your point in that. I think there's going to be a lot of coexisting, but I also think for the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to go through it a little bit. But I think in a way it's needed. It's deserved. Because when you neglect your wounds, what do? They bleed out. And unfortunately, that's what has happened. We've neglected a lot of wounds in race relations, in healthcare, in all these things, in the environment. That's why Mother Earth is doing what she's doing now. So it doesn't shock me. So I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to be about, the imagery I'm seeing in my head is mending. Mending. We're going to be doing a lot of cleanup. And it will not be easy, but it will be worth it.
So we're growing from it.
Yes. And that is if we choose to grow. Because a lot of us want to remain willfully ignorant, which I think is ludicrous. And don't get me wrong, I am not the most enlightened person in the world. Listen, I'm 41 years old. I am very much sometimes, get off my lawn. I don't know who was that? Who was this? I don't know who that is. I don't know who was a scissor. What's that? Okay. But at the same time, I am also open to saying, okay, well, I may not know who they are, but let me give them a listen. Let me see if I like them. I was the same way when Lady Gaga came out. I was like, that's cute. That's like Madonna and Grace Jones kind of blended together. Oh, that's cute.
Except she's got like steak hanging off of her.
Right. And then that's what I think. Well, she took elements from Cyndi Lauper, with her outrageous outfits and stuff. So for me, at the time, I was like, ah. But now I'm like, okay, she's not bad. Not bad. But that's the thing. That's how you grow. You may resist it at first, but then as time goes on, you're like, you know what? This actually isn't that bad. Why am I resisting this? I think that's the way the world is. I think right now we're literally in the tug of war. But eventually, we're going to give up. We're going to let go and let life do what it has to do. I think that's what the pandemic was about. The pandemic was like, okay, you don't want to sit down? I'm going to make you sit down. And that's what happened. Like, I love the first 6 months of the pandemic
Oh, girl, I did too. I
loved it. I loved it. And I miss it. I miss that. I'm like, that's what this was trying to do. It wasn't trying to kill us. It was trying to say, listen, sit down because I need to heal. The animals need to come back. We need to get the natural cycles of the world need to come back. And we had an opportunity to allow that to happen. But then here we go. I can't get a haircut if you don't learn how to get on YouTube and cut your own hair. And that's the thing. Because of that, I learned how to do that. I learned how to cut my own hair. I learned how to cook. Because honestly and truly, everything is at our fingertips. Everything. And for those of us who are older, YouTube is a school. If you want to learn how to, I'll use you as an example. You want to learn how to do a seance? YouTube video. You want to learn how to work with a talking board? YouTube video. You want to learn how to make a pact with a demon? YouTube video. You can do it. I would recommend that, but you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. And the one thing that even I'm unlearning is just because you are of a certain age, that it's too late.
Yeah.
Or that you're old. Okay, I'm older. Yes, I'm not old. But unfortunately, it also shows the pedestal that we put on youth. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being young, being in your 20s, 30s, and things of that nature, and being 18. But at the same time, there's also nothing wrong with being in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s and older, because you're still learning. As long as you're here, you're still learning and growing. And I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started. So listen, I mean, I had Megan Thee Stallion knees, but they all right. They get the job done. So I'm not done yet. But I always have to tell myself that too, because I think a lot of us buy into that. Mm-hmm. That, well, that's it. And I think especially as in the GLBT community, we buy into it a lot, especially men. Oh, yeah. I'm not 18 no more. If you don't sit down and learn to embrace the fact that you're not 18, you better be glad you're not. Because trust me, when I was 18, I didn't know my head from a hole in the wall. I don't miss that. I don't miss that time of my life. I don't want to be 22 and 32. I don't miss that era. I like where I am now because I'm still learning and stepping into myself. And I think, like I said, that's what's going on with the world. We're learning that we can't treat each other. We can't be separate. We're going to have to come together, whether we want to or not,
I love the wisdom that is coming with age. I don't love it physically, but I've never been a person that was afraid of age. I was always that kid growing up that was like, well, I'm 1 year older, like bragging about their age.
Oh, I couldn't wait to be grown. And now that I'm grown, I'm like, okay, it's like this a little bit. Okay. Maybe I jumped the gun, but I'm like, no, it's not that bad, But no, as I age, yes, your body will do things to you that you don't think it can do. But that's one of the reasons why I do believe in taking care of it.
Yeah.
No one's saying you need to be an Adonis, but take care of it. Watch how you eat. Exercise. Go outside. You can have a cheat meal, but you can't eat like you're 16. If you can, I feel good for you, and I slightly hate you. and not gain weight especially. But if you can't, it's okay too. Learn to love who you are. Learn to love the skin that you're in. That doesn't mean I'm just it is what it is. I'm not going to do anything about it. No, if you love your body, self-love to me is this. If you love yourself, that means you love every aspect of you. And that includes your body, your mind, your spirit. So that means you take care of your body. You take care of your spirit. You nurture your soul as best you can. And no one's saying you need to be perfect. But I'm saying take care of you because that's all you've got. And that's the one thing I'm learning as I'm getting older is that at the end of the day, it is all me. I can't look for someone to rescue me and swoop out. That prince that I want, That prince with that big house, he's a man that's wearing a smelly poncho. He reeks of beer, okay? And he rides a donkey. And he sells oranges on the side of the freeway. Nothing wrong with that. But that Prince fantasy is gone. And I'm learning that the only person I can really save is myself. I can't save people. And I can't look for someone to save me. So that's my thing that I'm learning, that, you know, this life is a beautiful thing, but you gotta learn to live it for you.
I think we're seeing that happen in many ways in this, you know, what's often referred to as the Great Resignation, which when you say that seems like a failure, you know.
But it's not.
I think it's people deciding that they're not too old to really do what they want to do.
Yeah, and they really are realizing, like, wait a minute, my job will replace me tomorrow. Let me do what I want to do. Now, I think even in that, there's nothing wrong with you quitting your job, but have a plan.
Yeah.
Because and this is from someone who is an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur is not for the weak. You're always working, whether you want to or not. You never get vacation or paid days off. If you do, please tell me. How do you do it? What you doing? Like what? But you don't. So I think there's nothing wrong with you resigning from your job, but have a plan. Have something that you're like, okay, I know what I'm going to do in the next year or two. I'm going to quit my job and do this. I've got everything I need to do. I've got the capital. I know people that can design my website for me. I'm going to pursue my passions. There's nothing wrong with that, but have a plan. Don't just up and do it. Because trust me, living life by the seat of your pants, it can be fun, but it also can be like, oh my God, what did I just do? You know what I mean? But once again, both those parallels, that's how you learn. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
And somebody told me years ago that I was going to be living in Houston, Texas. Don't hold it against me, listeners. If I was going to be living in Texas for the past 4 years, and I would be living completely with no roommates, no, you know what I mean? Like no real support system, and it's just me, I would have thought you were crazy. Because at that time, my nucleus was all I needed. But now I'm realizing, no, like Linda said, you've always had the power inside you. Mm-hmm. And now I'm realizing that, and I'm owning that now. And don't get me wrong, I have my days, but I'm realizing, like, wait a minute, this actually is not bad. I get to do what I want to do. If I want to make brownies at 3 o'clock in the morning, I can make them. Perfect, you know, and I do. If I want to cast a spell, you know, and smoke my house out, I can. If I want to have clients come to my home to give readings, I can. You know, things that before I would do, but I wouldn't fully embrace. Whereas now I do, because I realize it's like, this is my life. No one can control me unless I want to be controlled. And I'm grateful for that. And even when I have my dark moments, but trust me, there are many, but that has made me stronger. It's made me a better person. And it's made me what I call fabulous. And speaking of fabulous, if you can, go on Kindle and read my book. Honey, I'm fabulous and so are you.
Well, speaking of that and speaking of fabulous, we do shameless self-promotion here. And so this goes right into it.
Okay.
So if there's anything you need to promote, you know, remind us about the website, how people can contact you, all that. And any final thoughts you might have.
Well, okay. So for those of you who like a reading or you like a coaching session with me, a one-on-one personal coaching session, I do them via Zoom and Skype. You can log onto my website, which is psychicleo.com. That's psychicleo.com. And if you like, you can follow me on Twitter. That's at The Real Psychic Leo Brown. You can follow me on Facebook at The Real Psychic Leo Brown as well. If you want to, you can follow me on Instagram. That's Real Psychic Leo Brown as well.
You rock, and this has been so lovely, and you have been such a beautiful energy
Thank you.
To have on the show, and I'm so glad I followed the cookie crumbs that ended up showing up on my Facebook. I wish you luck. I think we should come back on.
I'll definitely come back.
And so, you rock.
Thank you. And my parting words of wisdom is just, I don't know, honey, just life is too short to be boring. Be bold. You know what I mean? Be courageous. Be brutal if you have to, especially with yourself. You know, the world is bad enough. Why should you don't see the sun nor the moon. They never stop doing what they have to do. The moon always controls the tides. the sun always shines, even on cloudy days. You know what I mean? So why should you stop doing what you have to and what you need to do and what you want to do? This is your life. Live it well.
And sometimes those cloudy days are my favorite.
No, not mine.
Thank you to the following super paranerds who support this show at patreon.com/big seance. Michael Henson, Daryl, Anne-Marie Sullivan, Natalie N., Kim Robb, Josiel Lorenzo, and Susan Davey. My supporters at the Parlor guest level, who can be found at bigseance.com/parlorguests, are Allie of Hocus Pocus Collector, Miranda from SpookyLittleHalloween.com, Chelsea from Cheers with Chelsea, Linda from ShimmeringMoons.com, Ann Rekovich from OzParatech.com, Janae Michaels from Greyhouse Tarot and Farm Artifacts, Mitchell Coombs from MitchellCoombs.com, Dina DeCastro of Dina DeCastro Astrology, Amy Park Gedicke of AmyParkG.com, Lonnie Scott from WeirdWebRadio.com, Lana and John of Carbon Lilies, Andrew Watson, Amy Taylor, Danielle Hembury, Alicia Ferguson, Morgan O'Hearn, Sarita Cockerham, Christine Rath Selhe, Mindy Kintop, Hope Battaglia, Cass and Bailey, Melissa Armour, Diane Rax, Bruce Williams, Christopher Kohler, Jim Budd, and David Rubenstein. That sound you just heard was the Above and Beyond There's Not Even a Category for Your Level of Support fireworks display. Because I have 7 awesome listeners who support this show at the $10 plus level. Peggy Hagan, Glenna Becker, Steve Skinner, Kevin Gilbert, James Wilfong, and Norman and Linda Keller. And I have a new Parlor guest who is supporting the show at the $15 level. Jean Marie, you rock. So thank you, Peggy, Glenna, Steve, Kevin, James, Mom and Dad, and Jean Marie. And thank you, Paranerds. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. And you can continue the discussion and hang out with a great community of paranerds by joining us in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. Want to hear your voice in a future episode? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.